There is a pervasive assumption when a community elects a board of directors. Because they hold a mandate from the voters and control a pooled treasury, many presume these directors possess absolute authority over how the neighborhood operates. In a standard private corporation, executives do operate with broad discretionary power. Community associations in Florida, however, are governed by a different standard. To neutralize the inherent power imbalance between a board and a single resident, state law strictly limits what directors can actually do. A corporate board routes budget inputs directly to execution, but an association's actions must pass through rigid statutory tripwires. Under Florida law, this strict regulatory architecture protects homeowners from corporate overreach, specifically targeting retaliation, self-dealing, and hidden finances. Every licensed community association manager must master the specific statutory boundaries that govern these three areas. We'll deconstruct the anti-retaliation limits that protect free speech, the rigid thresholds for legalizing a vendor conflict of interest, and the absolute requirements of the developer turnover audit. The licensed community association manager serves as the definitive enforcer of these legal boundaries, ensuring that board action never bypasses statutory law. We begin with the boundary protecting homeowners from an association weaponizing its own financial power to silence criticism. Florida law heavily targets what are known as SLAPP suits, strategic lawsuits against public participation. These are legal actions filed without merit, brought solely to bully, intimidate, or exhaust the resources of a resident who exercises their legal rights. Now, homeowners in Florida possess specific protected rights. The first is the right to public criticism. An owner can make public statements criticizing the operation, management, or financial choices of their association without fear of legal reprisal. They are also protected when reporting suspected building or health code violations, organizing independent resident resistance groups, or submitting complaints of statutory infractions to the state. If an owner engages in any of these actions, corporate retaliation is explicitly unlawful. An association cannot respond by discriminatorily raising that owner's assessments, cutting their access to utilities, or suddenly altering their architectural applications without objective justification. Consider this scenario. A resident posts online calling the board incompetent. Furious, the board votes to draw $5,000 reserve dollars to sue the owner. Under Florida Statute 718.1224, this expenditure is entirely unlawful. The board hit a statutory tripwire. Now, this triggers the absolute fund bar. An association is strictly prohibited from spending a single dollar of community or reserve funds to prosecute a SLAPP suit or fund a defamation claim against a unit owner. If directors want to pursue such a case, they must pay for it out of their own pockets or rely on their private directors and officers insurance. Violating this statute carries severe financial penalties. If a court rules the litigation was retaliatory, the judge has the authority to shift 100% of the targeted homeowner's attorney's fees and court costs directly onto the association. The judge can also invoke treble damages, ordering the association to pay 3 times the actual damages sustained by the homeowner. Community funds are collected and held in trust for the maintenance of the property. The law ensures they can never be weaponized as a retaliatory war chest against the residents who supplied them. Threats to community funds also emerge in daily operational decisions. Contract procurement is highly susceptible to financial kickbacks and hidden nepotism.
A manager or board member having a financial interest in a vendor is not strictly illegal in Florida. However, for that contract to be valid, the conflict must undergo a rigorous procedural cleansing process. Take a $50,000 clubhouse roof repair. The property manager recommends a commercial roofing firm owned by his biological brother. The night before the scheduled vote, the manager verbally mentions this connection to the board president. At the meeting, the board approves the contract. Despite the majority vote, this verbal notice is a statutory failure under Section 720.3033. The interested party must provide formal written disclosure. Then, the 14-day advance notice activates. Conflict details and the contract must be sent to every homeowner 14 days before the vote. When the night of the vote finally arrives, the structural power of the board must shift to cleanse the conflict. The interested board member faces an absolute voting bar.
They are legally disqualified from casting a vote on the execution of that specific contract. While they cannot vote,
The quorum rule dictates that the conflicted director's physical presence is still counted to establish a corporate quorum for that segment of the meeting. Finally, a simple majority is no longer sufficient. The contract must be approved by an affirmative vote of at least a 2/3 supermajority of the remaining non-interested directors present. Good intentions and a simple majority vote offer no legal cover. Transparency algorithms and supermajority math are the only valid defenses against corporate self-dealing. This demand for absolute mathematical transparency begins at the very genesis of a community. Developer turnover is the moment control of the association formally shifts from the original builder to the non-developer homeowners. When relinquishing control, a developer cannot simply hand the new board a current bank statement and walk away during their entire period of control. Florida law requires a comprehensive financial audit by an independent CPA. This audit has lifetime coverage, verifying all receipts and expenditures from the exact date of incorporation to the turnover meeting. Delivery is strictly timed. The audit and corporate records must be delivered to the homeowner board within 90 days of the election. This triggers the 90-day absolute cost bar. The developer must cover 100% of the financial costs to perform this multi-year CPA audit. Zero homeowner or association funds can be used to subsidize the developer's transition audit. A developer's financial liability to a community ends only when this audited, independent mathematical transparency is physically delivered to the homeowners. Across daily operations, contract negotiations, and developer transitions, the operational reality is clear. In a community association, unchecked board authority is a massive liability. Ultimately, Florida compliance rests on structural limits. Free speech is protected by banning the use of community funds for SLAPP suits. Vendor conflicts are cleansed through a mandatory 14-day notice and a 2/3 vote. And developer accountability is enforced through a lifetime, self-funded CPA audit at turnover. A procedural oversight, like accepting a verbal disclosure instead of enforcing a written 14-day notice, is precisely what exposes an association to voided contracts and severe financial penalties. A manager's success is defined by their ability to function as an inflexible statutory guardrail, protecting the community's funds and the board's legal standing through strict procedural adherence.